Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It's really fascinating to see on a Saturday afternoon so many bright faces. Thanks to Gaurav. Maybe he'll just join us for having this extremely cerebral event today. I have been asked to speak for about 10 to 15 minutes on global challenges and local solutions. So we'll have a 5-minute Q&A towards the end. Can we have the first slide, please? Can't start without quoting the Prime Minister of India. And if you see, some of you can't see what his quote is. It says, "I dream of a digital India where cyber security becomes an integral part of national security." It's a very important statement because national security today, as most of you are aware, goes beyond defending our borders and seas and the sovereign airspace. It also goes beyond energy, economy, society, food, water. And this is where he has realized the importance of cyberspace as a domain which needs to be an essential part of cybersecurity. Next slide. Let me start by cyberspace and what we understand by cyberspace, because we are clear about the defending the land, air, sea. In the air, up to about 100 kilometers, the sovereign airspace. But cyberspace needs to be understood. It is the superset, as is shown on the slides, of the interconnected IT assets. And in this slide, I will just try to highlight a small difference between what we are calling as the national cyberspace and the national sovereign cyberspace. So, for example, you have some data, which is our own data, which is residing on an Amazon server, which is located outside the territorial boundaries of India. So that would be part of your national cyberspace because it's your data. But it is not sovereign because you don't have legal rights over the servers that are outside the country because they come under the jurisdiction of some other nation. So that is where the difference comes, that the national sovereign cyberspace is that over which you have jurisdiction. So that means wherever your data is lying is also within the territorial boundaries of the nation over which you have legal rights. So there is a subtle difference which I thought needs to be understood. Next slide. On this. So why is cyberspace important? Is because that all your critical sectors today, the Digital India programs, you take any ministry, and especially after COVID, our dependence on cyberspace has increased so much that protecting it becomes extremely important. Let me start with the global challenges straight away. We can put off the slides. Don't worry, no problems. So let me start with the global challenges in cyberspace. And the first global challenge is geopolitics. Everything today is driven by geopolitics. And we are seeing it on ground. As to what the war in Eastern Europe has done, we've seen big tech taking sides, not only in the surface web, in the dark and deep web also. For the first time in my career, I'm finding that even in the dark and deep web, the groups have taken sides. So there is an anonymous group which is now squealing against the Hydra group, and we can make out as to whose alignment is where. So geopolitics is the first major challenge that it has created what is also being called as the future of the internet in terms of splinternet. So China has gone to the International Telecommunications Union with what is being called as a new IP. So they said that the existing internet protocol needs a change. So they have submitted a standard which is called as a new IP to the International Telecommunications Union. Why this is being done is because presently the internet is comprised of about 13 root servers. 11 of those root servers are in the United States, one is in Europe, and one is in Japan. So this is what has irked Russia and China, Iran, etc., that this is a very skewed sort of a distribution. So they have gone and applied for a new internet protocol. They've also said that we have a global system for data security, and the way they are creating the Belt and Road Initiative, and along with that laying the fiber and creating what is called as the digital Silk Road, you can make out that the internet is heading for a split, and that is a very dangerous sign, because that is going to make our job more difficult from the cyber security point of view. So geopolitics is the first point. The second is the lack of international regulations. It took the United Nations almost 20 years to create 11 non-binding norms of responsible behavior by states in cyberspace. I mean, the first United Nations group of government experts was formed in 2002, and from then, just last year, it has been approved by the UN General Assembly. And these are non-binding norms, mind you, as to how states should be responsible in cyberspace. There is a treaty called the Mutual Legal Assistance Treaty, which takes very, very long to implement. The letter rogatory also is a very long judicial process. So there is a lack of international regulation. Some years back, there was a manual, it was called the Talon Manual, that defined as to what is a cyber weapon, what are the thresholds above which we will call it a cyber war, but people have forgotten even Talon 2.0 now. So this is the state, the second major problem. The third problem would be the lack of attribution. Attribution means, where are the cyber attacks coming from? If you come to the Shastri Bhavan that we have, there's a National Informatics Center is there. They've got a huge screen as big as this, which shows you apparently where the attacks are coming from. And you find that 40% of the attacks are coming from mainland United States of America. But that is not the case, because that is only showing you the last IP address. So the way the attacks are taking place is that they come in 3 to 4 hops. So he hires a server in a virtual server, VPS, in US. From there, behind that, he's in Netherlands. Behind that, he's somewhere else. And then ultimately, he's at the source of from where he's attacking. So it's very difficult. And why is he coming from the US? Because he's taking advantage of democracies which have strong privacy laws. So if I ask the Amazon server as to who has hired this particular VPS, it will take a very long time. In fact, you might remember that in the US itself, there was a case of bombing in the Boston Marathon, where there was an Apple phone that was found, and they wanted to find out the details of that phone, but the Apple company did not give them the details. They said, we have privacy laws. Finally, they had to take the help of the Israelis and get the details of that phone. So that is the next problem, the lack of attribution. Then, of course, we have that the crime as a service. You see, the criminals have got together. Seeing that there are no laws, there are no regulations at the international level, the criminals have got together and they have created crime as a service. So there is a very common syndicate called ransomware as a service, where ransomware, I'm sure all of you understand, these days the most popular attack is ransomware, where there's double, triple extortion. That means you first go and first you take away the data of the enterprise. Then you leave a backdoor also. Then you encrypt it. And then you ask for the ransom. So if he doesn't pay the ransom, you say, okay, I'll sell your data in the dark web. And even after all that, he's left that backdoor at the end. So this is called the triple extortion. So ransomware as a service, earlier there were only specialized groups carrying out these sort of ransomware attacks. Today, there is somebody called an access broker. He's already sitting inside the companies. In fact, he knows as to how much insurance that company has taken for cyber insurance. So if you go to him, he'll tell you from this company, you can get $10 million, from this company, $5 million. He knows the insurance amount also. So there is the access broker, there is the encryptor who will encrypt the data, there is somebody who will help you in exfiltration, there is a negotiator. You'll be surprised, we've had these couple of ransomware attacks, and you find there is a negotiator comes in between, who negotiates between the two parties. So it's a proper enterprise that is presently taking place in ransomware as a service. So this is a very serious aspect, because as per the World Economic Forum, cybercrime is today the biggest man-made risk to the economic progress of nations. And as far as India is concerned, if you want to grow at 6.5%, 7%, we just cannot afford these headwinds that are already taking place because of financial crime. So from the global challenges point of view, there is a need for international cooperation also. And finally, there is also a shortage of skilled workers because the aspect of cybersecurity has become so important that suddenly we are wanting, even the small and medium enterprises are wanting skilled workers to help them out. So this is where the main problem is taking place, because the larger companies, I find, especially the banks and the larger enterprises, they have the deep pockets. So they have employed, they've got a security operations center, SIEM, SOAR, firewall, intrusion detection system, prevention system. They've put everything. But it is the 90% of the SMEs that are there in the industry that are facing the issue today. So these are some of the global challenges that we are faced with in cyberspace. So what is the government of India doing about it? Firstly, our existing cybersecurity policy is a 2013 policy. So a couple of years back, we established a task force. I was the chairperson of that task force. And we've drafted a new National Cybersecurity Strategy of 2023. It is presently lying with the cabinet for final approval. And that is a strategy which has a 5-year plan for the next 5 years. And we've tackled the entire environment of cybersecurity. The governance part has been tackled, cybercrime has been tackled, education awareness, the audits, cryptography, whatever is there involved in cybersecurity has been tackled as far as the strategy is concerned. Then the government has also issued a national security directive for the telecom sector, because in all our critical sectors, and we've got 7 critical sectors, including health and transportation and banking and financial services, etc., we've said that 2 sectors are super critical. That is telecom and power. Because if there's no telecom, then there is no flow of information, and everything from digital India to education, everything stops. And again, if there's no power, then it directly affects all the things that I just mentioned. So to address the telecom sector, we've issued this directive, and which stipulates that any equipment connected to the National Telecom Network of India has to be a trusted product from a trusted source. And what is a trusted source? It is a company which we go into the background of that company. Who is the ultimate beneficiary? Does it have any connections with the military or the intelligence of that nation? And there are about 10 agencies which go into the background of that company and say, okay, this company is a trusted source. After that, when the equipment comes to us, then we go down to the active programmable semiconductors, basically the silicon or the chips, as to where are the chips coming from, because that is also a danger. It can be programmed to do something malicious. So again, we see whether the chips are coming from a trusted source or not. So with this, this was implemented from 15th of June 2021, and we've ensured that over the last year, almost 2 years, all the equipment that is being put in the telecom networks of India is a trusted equipment from a trusted source. Similar thing is now being done in the power ministry. They've taken the IT part from us, because in the power they have an operational technology and the equipment is different. The generation equipment, transmission, distribution, grid operations. So for all that, they are having a similar sort of a directive for the operational technology equipment. So this is how we've addressed the telecom and the power sectors. A number of bills are in the making. You heard of the Personal Data Protection Bill. The last 2-3 years, this discussion has been going on. Finally, the minister has said it is going to be introduced in the monsoon session, because a large number of amendments had been made in the previous bill, which started off from that Justice Kuppuswamy case, etc. But the Personal Data Protection Bill is going to be introduced in the monsoon session. Ministry of Electronics and IT is also working on a Digital India Act, which is going to supersede the Information Technology Act of 2000. So that is in the making. The Department of Telecom is working on a telecom bill, which is going to replace, and you'll be surprised, the Indian Telegraph Act of 1885. So the telecom bill is in the making. And you would have, I don't know if those who are interested in the cybersecurity field, recall that last year, 28th April, we, when I say we, means the CERT India issued a directive which stipulated a number of things. It said that in case there is a cybersecurity incident, you have to report it within 6 hours. You all have to be synchronized with the NTP, the National Time Protocol. All the VPS and the VPN providers here in India have to maintain records for 5 years. And the reason was obvious, what I told you, that people hire these VPS servers and from there they carry out attacks. And some of the VPS providers had left the country because they said we will not abide by this directive. And you could make out that these are the guys who are actually through which the attacks are coming. So certain directives have come out, and at a national level, we've got a massive program called the ISA program, the Information Security Education Awareness Program, which is carrying out the education and awareness, because we should not always be reactive post-incident. We have to prevent the incident. So preventing the incident is through education and awareness, it is through audits, it is through carrying out exercises. We carried out a national cyber exercise last year, and it is through carrying out what is called as vulnerability assessment, penetration testing, etc. So a number of these actions have been carried out. There is a very important appointment called the CISO, the Chief Information Security Officer, who's the guy who handles the cyber security. So far, at least in the government, what we saw was that the Joint Secretary of the administration was told, you'll do the CISO's job, which was not fair because he did not have the knowledge. So now we've got all our CISOs, qualified people as CISOs. We're getting them trained and ensuring that there is this concept of crisis management plans, etc., being put into place. So these are some of the actions that the government of India is taking. The role of the private sector is very important in this, because when we see our critical sectors, most of it is private. If you see telecom, all the big three are private players. So how do we handle that aspect? As far as I said, the major players are concerned, they have got good systems in place. But for the smaller players, we've given them free tools to carry out their audits and checks, etc. So these are some of the actions that the government of India has taken place. And finally, what I would like to say that post-COVID, basically, there are only two mantras for survival. One is personal hygiene, and the second is cyber hygiene. And cyber hygiene impacts all of us, because when I initially mentioned that we have these land, air, sea, space as the dimensions, I don't know how many of you go to air and space every day, but every day, the moment you put your neck down and open that smartphone, you are entering cyberspace. You must know the rules of cyberspace, how to handle social media, how to ensure that there is privacy maintained, how to ensure that your software is updated, the passwords, they should be of a certain length, etc. And all those aspects of cybersecurity that are being generally spread around. You hear these messages on the radio, etc. Because cyber crime has become very important. You'll be surprised. I check up for the status from our government portal, cybercrime.gov.in, every day. It is more than 4,000 every day people are reporting. These are the people who know that there is a portal, cybercrime.gov.in. Actually, every day there are about 10,000 people in India who are getting swindled by cybercrime. And the methods are various. You are aware of sextortion and phishing, and they just make you click, and they make you scared that your electricity will get cut, and people are losing a lot of money. So my last advice to all of you would be, please, please don't fall for these tricks. There is also voice cloning that I heard the other day. That means you'll hear as if your friend is talking, but actually it is somebody else. So technology has even reached that level. So that is my last advice to all of you, that please don't fall for cybercrime, because that affects you personally, and they are targeting widows, they are targeting pensioners. There's a raid we went to, we found a list. They had a list of all the pensioners, they had a list of doctors, they know who's retiring and who's got money, etc. So, I mean, they are very targeted. They do their homework with social media, etc., and carry out very targeted crime. So I think I'll end with that, and we can have a couple of questions. But just to summarize, what I've said is that the global challenges of cyberspace firstly emanate from geopolitics. There is lack of attribution. There is a lack of international laws and regulation. The criminals have got together as a syndicate, and all this is creating large loss as far as the nation is concerned. Last year, we lost 2 lakh crores from cybercrime as a nation, which is why I said we just cannot afford these headwinds in view of the rate at which we want to grow. And at the government level, the nation has taken a number of steps, from the draft National Cybersecurity Policy to the various bills that I mentioned, the Data Protection Bill, the Telegraph Bill, the Digital India Act, and what CERT, the Computer Emergency Response Team, has done, and various directives that have come out. And finally, I've just given you a sort of advice on how to be very, very careful in terms of financial transactions. Thank you very much. So we can take a couple of questions. Yeah, we can start from you, sir.
Thank you, General Sir. I'm Wing Commander Bakshi. My question is related to aspect of combat. The word cyber attack has come. Now, I presume that you can attack a military establishment of enemy country. Now, if the cyber launcher is not located in a military area, but in a civil area of a neutral country, can it be attacked? Or secondly, is the cyber operator, if he's a civilian, is he a combatant or a non-combatant? So I would like to ask this question that suppose he's sitting in a neutral country, he's launching, can I launch an attack? And is launching an attack legal against him?
So that's a great question, because what they say in Ukraine is that there are people who carry out a cyber attack, and after doing so, he just picks up his school bag and goes to school. So that is the asymmetry of. Please sit down. Please, you can. When I spoke of the global challenges, one of the aspects is asymmetry. Today, there are nation states getting attacked by individual hackers. That is the level of asymmetry. There are states like Peru and Papua New Guinea, etc., and Latin America, etc., the whole government has been put under cyber attack by just either an individual or a group of individuals. So, as far as the military aspect of cyber attacks are concerned, they can be launched from a third country also, as you mentioned, because the attribution, in fact, in all likelihood, they would be launched through servers in 2-3 countries. I mean, nobody is a fool to directly launch a cyber attack, because your last IP address comes straight away. And with every packet that you send is your destination IP and your source IP. So nobody does that you directly attack a military installation. It will definitely go through 2-3 hops. And you mentioned a very important point. In warfare, there is now this concept of cyber physical systems. So it's not IT that is being attacked. It is power stations. You remember the 2010 Natanz attack as to how great a damage could be done because of a cyber attack. That's a very valid question. Yeah.
Thank you, sir. I think we are running out of time.
Oh, great. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir.